What's up, y'all, and welcome back to Legend of the GLORIO Heroes, your premier podcast for the legendary 1988 OVA. It's an exciting week here for us. The VGAs just aired, and I think I can speak for all of us when I say that I am just so excited to see that Yang and Reinhard are making it into Smash Bros.
God, I wish. Well, wouldn't it be Shenkop? I don't know. How does Yang and Lee fight in Smash Bros?
I don't know. I think Yang would kind of be like Pokemon Trainer.
Okay, yeah, alright,
Like,
okay, yeah.
like you would switch between,
just swap between Shenkop, Yulian, and
I don't know, maybe Louis Mashengo. We'll see.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but particularly, pretty excited. We got to see Reinhard's final smash where he opens his magic jar full of fleets,
Yep.
finally bailing Bittenfield out. But I digress. As always, I'm your host G, and with me is Iro.
Hi. Still here.
We are still here.
Pulled me away from Smash Brothers to record this podcast.
Somehow, yes. Somehow we managed to put the controllers down for just a moment to talk about the real important things in life, like Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
And the downfall of democracy.
Yes.
I guess we'll get to that.
Well, might as well. As always, you could call this an interesting trio of episodes.
Indeed.
But I think this week, perhaps particularly so. We got everything this week. We got drama, action.
Yeah.
The slow and inevitable downfall of democracy. Intergalactic Renaissance men of mystery.
Yeah.
And Louis Mashengo.
Space fights, explosions, Louis Mashengo.
So what? Let's just roll right into it.
We're covering this installment. We're covering episode 30, Lost Things, episode 31, Inquiry, and episode 32, War Without Weapons.
Indeed. So we're just going to start off with episode 30, where we are introduced to our
Mecklinger.
Yeah, our good buddy with the porn stash, Mecklinger.
Yeah, they've been kind of going down the list of Reinhardt's squad and introducing each one. We got a bit of Kempf in the past few episodes, and we get a bit more of him later on in this trio. But for now, it's Mecklinger and his luxurious mustache.
And we find out that Mecklinger is maybe actually a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, known as the artistic admiral.
Yes,
visiting Hilda's sickly cousin, who's a fan of the arts.
Yes, is Heinrich von Kuhnmel. And we find out that he is the biggest Mecklinger stan out there. This dude is a huge Mecklinger fan. He is so excited. He is so hyped that motherfucking Mecklinger is here.
Mecklinger brought me a painting. Oh my god.
It's very good. And yes, we get the fantastic description of Mecklinger as, they literally call him a Renaissance man, a poet, a painter, a master pianist.
Yeah.
And most of all, an admiral who is both excellent at leading from the front and organizing the rear logistics. And he's an excellent staff officer.
But because he was common born, he couldn't make a living with the arts.
It's around here that we begin to wonder, is Mecklinger just the liberal arts equivalent of Yang Wenli?
Yang Wenli, if Yang Wenli went for another useless degree. There's a great sequence, where they call him a Renaissance man, and they say, for example, Leonardo da Vinci and Cao Cao.
Which I fucking love, because, you know what? I feel like to most audiences, Cao Cao from Romance of the Three Kingdoms is not maybe the first person you think of as a Renaissance man, but once you say it, it actually fits very well, so...
And something I really like here is they also mention a Lazare Carnot and a Togrel Beck, who, pretty sure those aren't real people. But that adds a lot of depth to the setting, because how many hundreds of years have passed, since our level of history?
Oh,
ton of
totally.
Galactic Heroes. Like
it's one of those like very subtle like storytelling like tools, but I feel like it's one that a lot of media kind of make the mistake of, is like assuming that even in the future, the world that they will know of is the world we know now, right? That it exists in stasis, that everything great that can happen has already happened. Whereas Legend of the Galactic Heroes does this subtle thing of saying, actually, no, hundreds of years will pass, and surely there will be other great, important individuals,
Yeah, influential folks. I think a good
And
example of how this shows up a lot in media is like, particularly in sci-fi settings, is when they're like, this laser that is the equivalent of 10 Hiroshima bombs or something.
Right.
It's like, are we still going to be using that as a unit of measurement in like 2500?
Like surely not, I mean, it's you think about it, right? Like even the this nuke, this warhead, this modern nuclear warhead is the equivalent of like 50 Hiroshima bombs. It's like, that's a point of reference that is literally less than 100 years old.
Right.
Think about it now. Nobody
living memory. Still.
Right. Like nobody's going around saying, "Oh, this nuke has the power of 1,000 sticks of dynamite." Like technology honestly moves pretty quickly, and 500 years from now, I'm sure they'll have their own like, "Oh, this laser is the equivalent of like 15 Geiersburgs or something," like, or whatever. But we'll get into Geiersburg later. So.
Well, no, we can get into Geiersburg right now. Because...
Actually, you know what? Yes. Well, before we do that, I do just want to point out the one line where they're talking about, "Oh man, Mecklinger, you're so cool, you're such a great artist," and then fucking Mecklinger, fucking intergalactic man of mystery here, fucking busts out the line that, "Actually, I'm working on the greatest piece of art of all, Reinhard von Lohengram."
The living piece of art. Everything about him is so artistic.
As if we didn't already have enough, honestly, on the nose, congratulatory titles for Reinhard. We now have the living piece of art. But yes,
there's also
Iro, as you.
But they do also close out by saying like, "Oh, they felt vague uneasiness about what's his name, Baron
Heinrich, the sick one."
Heinrich. Yeah, they're like, they felt some unease, but it'll be a while until that showed up. Okay, let's Galactic Heroes. I guess I'll keep an eye on this.
That felt like a very weird bit of foreshadowing there. Like, I feel like usually the show's pretty good about being kind of subtle with, like, "Oh, pay attention to this. This will be important later." Whereas the narrator was just like, "This is going to be a big deal, but that's for another day."
The Vulture has spread its wings. Geiersburg Fortress's first warp test has succeeded.
Yes.
It seems.
Yes, it seems to be that the Death Star is fully operational. It's capable of warp, and in many ways, I am still kind of quietly furious that this plan is going so much better than it honestly should.
Third plot of, let's strap rockets to our supposedly stationary space fortress.
Yeah. And, well, I mean, it's just the idea of like, oh, well, if we need a warp drive this big for a ship this big, then we just need a warp drive this big.
Just scale up. Well, yeah, they literally just strap like 12 rockets to the Geiersburg.
Yeah, or like 12 warp rockets, whatever they are, but it's absurd, but somehow it works, and they're getting ready for it.
Yeah.
And we kind of have this good conversation where, Hilda's talking with Reinhard, and
she's still opposed to this absolutely ridiculous dispatch.
Well, I mean, she gets and understands that Reinhard's true enemy has never been the FPA. It's, Reinhard's true enemy is the Golden Bomb dynasty. It is the legacy that has been created by Golden Bomb. The literal centuries of institutionalized, autocracy and
oppression.
And oppression. Yes, that is the true enemy, and dismantling, centuries of how your society has been run is the real enemy. And we kind of get this moment where Reinhard's like, "Yeah, I know that, and the way we can beat that," and he's like, he says something along the lines of like, and the only way that like, you know, an empire can be truly great is, you know, through warfare. And, you know, our most obvious enemy is the FPA, so they're the ones I have to fight.
Yeah, because having an enemy for the people to rally around is like the surest way to form cohesion, according to Reinhard.
Yeah, it's well, you know, it fits for Reinhard's philosophy. You know, it's kind of cold. It's a little maybe too cynical for my own taste, but you know, he's not wrong in the way wartime can unify people.
He also feels it's the only thing left for him, right? Like,
yes,
that's part of it.
I mean, yes, this is the public answer that Reinhard is giving. You know, even around Hilda, who, you know, we say that maybe Reinhard put, you know,
let's say at this point she's the closest person to him.
Yes, but even then, no, it's still like I'd say Reinhard's like his shields, quote unquote, are still like up at like 50-60%. You know, this is still Reinhard with the mask on. Like, maybe Hilda knows he's wearing the mask. Like, that's about as close as she's gotten. But you know, I feel like it only seems close in comparison to literally everybody else. You know, I might as well just bring it up now. I feel like we've been hearing this line of thinking fairly often. I feel like in the past few episodes where a lot of Reinhard's admirals have explicitly said out loud, "I don't know what Reinhard is thinking," or "I don't know Reinhard that well."
Right.
You know, and I think that speaks to the air of mystique he has purposely created for himself, the distance he has put between him and everyone else, and I think it's only in comparison to that I believe Hilda seems relatively close.
Yeah,
but
it is definitely relative.
But I think, as you said, I do agree with you, Iro, that it is the answer that Reinhard gives, but I think we all know the real answer is that because of Kircheis' unfortunate wording in his dying moments, you know, please win the universe, I feel like that has only emboldened Reinhard's belief that, oh, like, if I don't conquer the whole universe, no matter how much blood is spilled, then Kircheis' death will have been in vain, so clearly I need to go fully off the deep end with this shit.
Yeah, but don't worry, I won't kill the Kaiser, he's only 7 years old.
Right, yes.
I don't think I'll want to go down in future generations as a child murderer.
About that, Reinhard.
Too late!
A little late there. Like, unless Reinhard means that I don't want to go down in history as somebody who personally pulled the trigger on children. Because, unfortunately, you know, look, the definition of child killer is subjective. There are varying degrees and severity of child killing, but Reinhard, even under the most forgiving definitions,
10 still prepubescent.
Yes. Like, unless we get a scene later down the line once Reinhard actually becomes Kaiser and he passes a law where now, you know, the age of consent in adulthood is 10 years old to, you know, skirt by on the technicality of, you know, killing these, you know, 10-year-old, you know, well, now legally defined adults.
Oh boy.
But yes. So, with that taken care of, we return back to the FPA, where Yang has been called back to Heinessen for an inquiry.
Yep. Which is strange because there's no such thing as an inquiry in the bylaws.
Like,
it's not a court-martial.
Right, it's not a court-martial and it's not a tribunal. It's an inquiry, and in many ways, I think Yang quickly realizes that this is in some ways infinitely more dangerous than a court-martial.
Right.
A court-martial is public. Right. There's procedures you have to follow. You know, it's public. They have to follow the rules, at least on paper. You know, but what an inquiry, this ill-defined, vaguely, you know, vague concept with no defined rule set, you know, no guarantees, you know, no precedent, you know, like, as Yang kind of pessimistically states, like a worst case scenario, an inquiry could be the equivalent of putting a bag over his head and taking him to a black site where he's never seen again.
Yeah.
And as a result, Shen Kop wisely states that you need someone on the ground there with you, and Yang being. I feel like this is the part. There's the parts where I feel like Kazalnu is entirely correct about Yang, where it's like Yang, you really need to maybe pay more attention to taking care of yourself.
Please
because
don't give them an excuse to go after you.
Right. Because I feel like maybe Shen Kop was a bit extreme, but I feel like Shen Kop has the right idea of like you're gonna need people there who have your back.
Yeah, take security squad with you.
Yeah, like I think what did Shen Kop say? He said, if I had it my way, I'd send the whole battalion down there with you or something.
Something like that. But instead, Yang asks for a single nomination.
Yes, just one man.
Give me one man I can take with me, but not
Shen Kop says it can't be Julian because he's busy being a Luke Skywalker. And yes, and doing Yang's dishes and his laundry, but that's when Shen Kop says, "Well, I don't know anyone better than Louis Mashengo."
Yeah, Master Sergeant Louis Mashengo.
Yes,
who is a quiet man, but if you make him angry, you can dispose of platoons single-handedly.
It's a fantastic description for a man we don't even get to see this episode. But already given us some good expectations for our friend Louis. But yeah, so Yang basically agrees to just take Louis Mashengo with him and Frederica.
Yeah.
And he even says that he's only going down there in a cruiser. He will not be taking the flagship of the Iserlohn fleet.
Yeah. Actually, that's really convenient. Now that I think about it.
Oh, wait a huh. Yeah. Oh.
We'll get there.
You think? Oh. Oh man. Yeah. All right. Sorry, guys. We just came to the realization of something about episode 32 now that we realize that Yang has left his most powerful ship back at Iserlohn. Yes, his flagship, the ship that everybody knows. Oh, that's the ship Yang. That's Yang Wenli's ship. Oh, okay. You're pretty good, Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
You're pretty good.
But yes, so Yang wants to he doesn't want to make a statement, right? He realized that on some way, politics is all bullshit, but politics is also it's all presentation.
He knows that they're worried that he'll try to take over or whatever.
Right. So he knows that they're worried that they're already on edge and they'll take any excuse they can get. So he's taking a smaller ship, he's not going in there.
Going in with his hands up.
Yes. And that's what we see of the FPA. We return back to the Empire because we get a little bit of Kempf, because Kempf, as we know, has been assigned to the Geiersburg operation. He will be commanding the fleet that assaults Iserlohn. And Kempf will be away for a few days, or maybe a few weeks, or maybe longer.
Visits his wonderful family.
His wife and his lovely children.
So, Daddy's going far away to fight the bad guys.
Oh, Daddy, you'll bring back a souvenir, won't you?
When I come back, let's visit Grandma.
Kempf,
when the operation succeeds, I'll take a vacation.
Kempf, don't do this to us. Don't.
When I come back, I'll probably get promoted, and I can send your family more money, my beautiful wife.
Don't. Kempf, you've made a lot of.
Battlefield and not come back?
Oh, Kev, don't. Look, we were all worried. We were all a little bit worried when we saw Kazalnu's family for the first time.
Yes,
but
but the camera never quite lingered on them. So
right. In ways, I don't want to make big assumptions here. Let's be honest. If you want to kill a dude on the FPA that'll feel impactful but won't be a huge deal, Kazalnu would probably be on the top of that list. Mm-hmm. So I could totally see them doing that, but also I feel at least up till now, they haven't done anything too egregious with Kazalnu's family to set up those death flags, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
we know he's a family man, but that's not it's not as you say, it's not a thing the camera lingers on. Whereas with motherfucking Kempf here,
it's hilarious gratuitous scene. Kempf loving his family.
Yeah, it's like some fucking like Naked Gun Part 1 shit, where like it's that scene where it's just a montage of like the character like kissing his wife, saying, "Oh, don't worry, I'll sign the mortgage when I get back from this mission. And by the way, I also found out who assassinated Kennedy, but I'm keeping that in this notebook in my front pocket that I'll bring back with me after the mission." It's wait, am I thinking of no, I think I'm thinking of Hot Shots, not the Naked Gun. I think I was thinking of Hot Shots.
Sure, probably.
Just gonna say that out loud so people don't correct me. But anyways, yes, it's just Kempf having a family in a show like this is already a death flag.
Yep.
But you just piled it on, man. Like,
oh, it's so good. It's hilarious.
Yes. It's. I mean, look, Kempf seems like a decent guy, but
yeah,
we'll see how this all plays out.
Yeah. Meanwhile, on Phezzan,
yes, we find out that
Baron Flegel's like squad, shot him.
Yes,
and then decided to go become farmers.
Yes, led by one Leopold Schumacher, have come to Phezzan to become farmers, as they literally said they would.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for Leopold, though, he is being scouted out by Phezzan in the only way Phezzani know how, which is blackmail and idle threats.
There's that great exchange where he's like, is this how Phezzan does things? Guy just says, "Yup, this is how Phezzan does things."
Doesn't even try to be cute about it. Like, no, yes, that's how we do things here in Phezzan. So will you play ball or not? Yeah. And so we know that now Leopold is involved in the Phezzani plot in some way.
Yeah, and they put him together with some count from the
some count who's like a failed writer or something. I didn't quite get what the dude's shtick was or why he would be useful to the. Well, we'll see. As always,
sure.
They don't
that plan will bear fruit 10 episodes from now.
Yes, and finally we get Roenthal and Mittermeier just kind of reminiscing about old times, about the time they saw Reinhard for the first time, back when he was just back when he was just a von Musel, not a Lohengrin, and talking about is he a tiger or a house cat?
He's a lion, the lion of all beasts.
So fucking. Here's the thing. I know that some of our listeners say that we kind of maybe bag on the Empire a little bit too much, and I will say that
fun to
it's more that we love the Empire, but we love the Empire in the way that they are the most fucking ridiculous people ever. Like, the way they talk, the way they carry about themselves is just so dramatic. It's so over the top. We love it. It's I think it's also hard to take seriously.
Yeah. Particularly because it contrasts with the relatively contemporary, modern trappings of the FPA. Yeah. Because if you were walking down the street and you'd see some fucking Victorian fop wearing a cravat and dusting himself off and speaking in an extremely highfalutin way, you would think that was funny too.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah. And I think it is definitely lines like these that kind of get to that. Like nobody in the FPA would ever say Yang's not a tiger, he's a lion, the king of the beasts. It's just so ridiculous. But yes, and then we get what will maybe be. I almost feel I kind of wish we had started keeping account of how many times will various members of the Legend of the Galactic Heroes cast say, "If only Kircheis was alive."
Yes.
Because I feel like we're going to get those lines a lot in the future.
Yes, even from us.
Yes.
I feel like we've already said that several times.
Yeah. I mean, the episode kind of ends, with literally kind of Reinhard sitting in the throne room, blood still on the floor. From Kircheis' death, and kind of just I kind of like this moment because
he doesn't let anyone in with him as he goes to reminisce and pray in front of Kircheis, the spot where Kircheis died.
And I think it's a very good I don't know about metaphor, but I mean, Reinhard literally physically doesn't let anybody else into that room.
Yeah.
You know,
as Hilda says, he won't open his heart to anyone other than the dead.
yes, and I kind of appreciate this moment because I don't know if this is an intentional thing on an intentional decision on their part, but I feel like even we, the audience, have been kind of growing distant from Reinhard.
Yeah.
If you look at like how much screen time he's gotten, if you look at like
season 2, yeah.
Yeah, like in season 2 versus season 1, like season 1, it was the Reinhard and Kircheis show, and now in season 2 without Kircheis, it's like I feel like in many ways, in the same way that the rest, I wonder if it's the show's like intention to try and make us feel the same way that Reinhard's admirals and Hilda feel.
Yeah.
Like because now we are only shown the version of Reinhard that wears the mask. Even we kind of feel distance from him. We no longer really know him as well as we used to. In many ways, I'm not sure if we will ever get another moment like season 1 where Reinhard doesn't want to go to Lord Braunschweig's ball because he hates Lord Braunschweig.
God, yeah, that Reinhard might be gone forever.
Yeah, and that's in many ways I feel like it's moments like that that actually make Reinhard as a character work for me. Like the tragedy to his character. When you think back and be like, oh, those moments are never coming back, are they?
Yeah.
We are never going to get we are never going to get Kircheis sitting there in the limo with his freaking embroidered laptop, telling Reinhard that don't worry, I'll stay in the car. I'm going to take care of some work, and we'll be waiting for you. Like we're never getting that kind of stuff ever again.
His last tether to like any claim of innocence is gone.
Yeah. It's well done. It's well done. It's effective because, again, I feel like it would be very easy for us to dislike Reinhard, but
yeah,
the show does a lot of really important stuff to still make him feel very tangible as a character in this story.
Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily agree with what he's doing, but
of course not. No, again, fucking
of course not.
Motherfucking Reinhard doesn't want to be a child killer Lohengrin. Sorry, dog, you already are.
Yeah,
but you're also still sympathetic.
Character, yeah.
Yes, but anyway, so with that finished, we roll into episode 31, where we kind of start off with
open with like already some of the Young's writing his like captain's log or whatever.
Yes,
but should I just read this line?
Yeah, go for it.
Fucking strikes straight to my heart. See, the nation that neglects social inequality mischievously increases military budgets and then uses its power internally to suppress the citizens on the pretext of invasion by an external enemy is on the road to extinction. Such is the present state of our nation.
Yeah, it's Yang just basically lays it all out there for you. Like, if you made it up to episode 31 and you did not understand what was going on with the FPA plot, Yang basically just lays it all out here. Like, the FPA is truly on the verge of collapse. Maybe it's already too late. Maybe we can't even save it anymore, but... And he kind of has this, like, again, like, Yang... Like, it's tough because I think Yang truly does believe in democracy, but he has a lot of lines often that that speak to how realistic he is. Like, he understands that, how come Reinhard succeeds? Why does Reinhard's system succeed? Even if the Lohengrin system isn't by the people, it is at least nominally, for now, for the people.
Right. He basically lays out how the FPA trying to still be in like opposition to the Empire is foolish because we don't have the resources to do so, and considering the current situation, coexistence for now is the best option.
Yeah, and it kind of just it really does just get to the central argument of Legend of the Galactic Heroes of, is a corrupt democracy worth fighting for versus an enlightened, how do we put it? I don't even want to say monarchy. I guess it's kind of more of a dictatorship, I mean.
Yeah. A benign dictatorship, let's
Right,
say.
a benign and quote-unquote enlightened dictatorship, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of, like, well, which of those is preferable? Because, theoretically, the corrupt democracy is bad, but theoretically it can be fixed because democracy is, again, theoretically
Yes.
self-repairing. It can be self-corrected. Whereas a benign dictatorship is nice for now, but what about when the benign dictator dies? Who follows up after him? Are they also
Right.
benign? Do they also have the people's best interests at heart? And if they don't, how can the people change that? They can't. The only way you can change a dictatorship, as Reinhard shows, is through violent uprising.
Mm-hmm.
And so, at its core, which one is good for us in the long, which is good for us in the short term and the long term, and does the long term matter that much if people in the short term are still suffering?
Yep. Speaking of, like, oh, we're close enough to Heinesen to pick up the television. First channel is when fucking Mr. Negroponty talking about how we must continue the war. We shouldn't cut military budget just because of the loss of tiny individuals.
Yeah, and Young, of course, says that.
Ridiculous, line.
And of course, Young rightly, points out that this is bullshit. To those in power, there is nothing cheaper than other people's lives. This idea that it's very easy to talk about. We could still win this war. We just need more people. People just need to sacrifice more. They just need to dig in a little deeper. They just need to try a little harder. That's all.
Indeed.
It's
more like the Greatest Generation.
But yeah, so Yang is also, just real quick. Also, Yang rightfully, I'm glad Yang finally points out his intuition on Phezzan is. It doesn't need to be. It don't need to go into too much detail. Basically, just Yang's just like Phezzan seems to be up to no good.
Yeah.
Like they're basically the only people who seek to lose if the Empire and the FPA coexist.
If peace arrives, Phezzan is redundant.
Yes.
Their very existence becomes redundant.
Right. But
so it is in their best interest to keep conflict going.
Yes. Alas, we will see if Young ever manages to get the power or the authority to do something about Phezzan. But anyways, in the meantime, Young lands on Heinesen, and he is taken alone by some FPA goons to meet with National Defense Chairman Negroponty.
Right. Okay. So he's basically Trunicht's lackey.
Right. I mean, he's basically the guy who is running things for Trunicht so that Trunicht can stay in the background.
Yeah.
I mean, as we find out in episode 32, he is literally the proxy through which Trunicht can enforce his will while avoiding the consequences of failure.
You know what I think I'm not actually sure on this, but is it that Trunicht is now like head chairman and this guy is Trunicht's old job?
You know what? That might be, actually. I don't remember specifically what Trunicht's position was prior
to Secretary of Defense, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure, but it's not actually.
Anyway, so we get Young gets taken in to the inquiry. We get a little bit of his history about that he was the son of Yang Tai Long, and apparently an untrusted
artifacts.
Well, ostensibly an interstellar merchant who sells artifacts.
Yep.
Until we find out that he sold fake artifacts.
Well, no, it's like I think it's his collection. Everything that he collected for himself turned out to be fake.
Oh, okay.
And so, like, he was actually broke.
Yes.
None of it had any value.
Right.
This does make me recall there was a scene that was in D&T, but not in the OVA, where after the PKC throw the bomb into Yang's house, and it breaks his china or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, that was the one thing my dad left me that was genuine."
Oh man, I'm surprised you remember that. Yeah, that's a good callback. Now that you mentioned, I totally remember that line, but I didn't internalize it enough at the time that that's that's kind of like really good subtle storytelling. Like, yeah, I guess that's pretty good.
Sure. yeah, and then Yang, having inherited nothing because he's broke, joined the military academy.
Yes, he joined the War History
like,
Department.
Right, which they said like the department was dissolved, something like that,
due to budget cuts.
Yang.
Some things never change.
Yeah, then ended up in officers track.
Yes,
or something like that.
But yeah, so we kind of, this inquiry kind of just sucks. Like,
oh yeah,
I guess we should go over it, broadly. But long story short, it's a whole lot of fucking political posturing and bullshit.
Oh yeah. Oh Yang, how come you destroyed all of the Ornibus necklace?
Right, and Yang rightfully explains that doing a siege wouldn't work because it would give the coup time to take hostages or do something desperate.
Right, and destroying some of them won't work because then the rest would just fire upon my forces and kill them all.
Yes, or then that I had to get there as quickly as possible because Reinhard had just finished up with his coup, and they might have invaded if he took too long. And it's just a thing, right? Of everything Yang says is totally sensible, but it's like these people. It's just frustrating to watch, the logic just bounce off of these politicians.
Right.
And there's a good bit where I think the politicians are kind of shouldn't you be a good member of society? Don't you aren't you a nation is blah blah blah.
I can't believe you made this statement belittling the nation.
Yeah, and Yang just kind of fucking lays it down, letting them know nations aren't cells, they don't self-replicate, Yeah. Nations are built by the individuals who inhabit them, not the other way around.
Yeah, and the nation should serve the people.
Exactly.
Not the people should not serve the nation.
And then the politicians accuse Yang of being a radical vegan anarchist. Which is pretty good. Yeah. Yang has that fantastic line where he's like, I could call myself a vegan, though I'd break my commandments as soon as I saw some meat. So you could call me a radical anarchist, but
It's like the Negroponty is like, no, humans are social creatures, and I think to succeed, they need to form nations, which from a certain perspective, I guess, but then Yang immediately dismantles that. People may need societies, but don't necessarily need nations.
You're right. It's definitely moments like this that definitely speak to they say that Yang is a historian, right? That he was a history student, that history is his passion. And then I feel like it's kind of minor statements like these that actually really, they do a fantastic job of reflecting that expertise.
Yeah.
I often feel in some media, a character will be called a doctor or a PhD because that will make them sound smart. But the things they say and the things they do, will not actually reflect that training.
Right.
And sometimes that's fine, right? A writer is only human, a writer who isn't a PhD isn't going to necessarily know, oh, well, a PhD would say this because that's just intrinsic to, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But I feel it's bits like these that really show you that Yang truly is, a historian at heart.
I also think this conversation is a good contrast with what Reinhard was saying last episode about how the only way to bring people together is to have a common enemy to fight.
Right. And totally. And I think it's because Yang recognizes that nations are only the latest evolution in how human societies have formed, Yeah. Before that, we had kingdoms and tribes. We had empires. In Legend of the Galactic Heroes, we still have empires.
Indeed.
But, you have commonwealths and all those sorts of things. And Yang recognizes that a nation is not the end-all, be-all. In fact, a nation is just a concept. It's a term that we use to describe ourselves because...
To describe civilization of a certain, make.
Yes. But that it has no intrinsic value. It has no intrinsic bearing.
Yeah.
And, so after that, we switch back to Frederica. And Frederica and Louis Mashengo.
Mashengo.
Hell yeah, we see Louis Mashengo this week.
They're outside, trying to meet with Young because this inquiry has no legal basis.
Right. Frederica's fucking hitting the books. She knows that, like, this inquiry is total bullshit. But, alas,
the Bay is a real dick.
Yeah, the FPA goons are just, no selling them here, so Frederica realizes she's gonna have to, probably get the hold of somebody who has some power to throw around, and who better than...
we also see that Truniht has control of the mass media, basically.
Yes. Right, yes, because Frederica talks about taking this to the media, and Bay is like, yeah, try that, see how far that gets you. But, yeah, so she decides, well, we need to talk to somebody who has some power to throw around, and who better than our friend Bucock. And so, they're gonna head on over there. But before that happens, I do just want to say one quick thing. One line I did write down. So, because we just see that scene with Frederica, we then cut back to the inquiry being like, and then not only that, but you kept Frederica Greenhill around as your adjutant.
Right.
Doesn't that seem bad?
The daughter of Dwight Greenhill, who...
Right. And, Young's like... Right, Young's like, of course I did. She's good at her job. Like, why should a child have to pay for the sins of the father? And then they're like, but it would cause needless misunderstandings. And, Yang calls them out on their bullshit. Like, what the fuck is a needless misunderstanding? Can you define that for me? Do you have bullet points for what a needless misunderstanding is? Because
I don't think I should prepare for this nebulous concept that doesn't exist.
It's so good. But anyways, so Frederica heads over to the FPA, I don't know, military headquarters or whatever, and runs into a dude who's like, oh, yeah, I know where Bucock is. Yeah, he's downstairs in the garage. Yeah.
I just saw him there.
Yeah, and turns out it's a trap. And Frederica and Louis get cornered by the PKC, up to no good again. But luckily, motherfucking Louis Mashengo is here. They made him mad.
Yeah. Kicks some ass.
Beating the fuck out of these dudes.
Pretty great. He does go off, takes out like 5 guys.
Yeah, no, it's pretty great.
Swarm him.
I mean, I want to point out again, he's not even armed. The dude doesn't even have a pistol. He's just doing this with his bare fucking fists.
Right. I think he snatches one of their clubs off the ground.
Yeah. No, I hope we see more of our friend Louis here.
The dude in the face through his mask.
Yeah, it's so good. I hope we get, I hope we get to see Louis Mashengo put on some power armor later down the line. Give him an axe. Let's see him get, put that to work. But unfortunately, he gets swarmed by like...
Yeah, he gets swarmed and
then they're about to take out Frederica.
But then Bucock and his staff happen to show up in the elevator.
Yes.
Convenient.
Very convenient.
Got a shot of some dude named Feifel. I don't know.
Yes. Maybe he's like Bucock's adjutant. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. But also we see that the PKC masks have
they have Earth Cult writing on them.
Yeah, Terra is my mother, Terra in my hand.
Yeah, so the PKC either...
phrase they've been spouting for a long time.
Yeah, so with his development, we find out that either the PKC have always been Earth Cult goons, or this is a new development.
Well,
they've been subsumed by... Right, because...
by the Earth Cult during the coup d'etat.
Yeah.
Which, like... They're basically Phezzan, right?
Yeah, Earth Cult is mostly Phezzan as far as we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that could mean a number of things, right? It can mean Job Truniht is working with Phezzan. Job Truniht is using Earth Cult members as the PKC, right? Like, he's... Either way, not a good look. Yep. But yes, we get back to Bucock, where he's explaining to Frederica and Louis that because of the actions of the NSMC, the military has kind of been defanged.
Right. Like, basically, he and Kubersley are only allowed to keep their jobs because they opposed the coup and didn't really do much at all.
But otherwise, they don't have that much political power anymore.
Right.
And just things are real bad for the FPA.
Yeah.
And, it's...
Go ahead. They have control of the mass media, and... The government is trampling the principles of democracy.
Long story short, it's not a good look. And
it's really not.
And you figure to yourself, boy, things couldn't get any worse, huh? And then they get worse because the Geiersburg plan was a success, and Geiersburg has warped right next to fucking Iserlohn. And of course, Hwang is all the way back at Heinesen.
Indeed. It's so bad about this inquiry that he's writing his letter of resignation.
Yes.
There's that great scene where he's just like pacing in his room, throwing up his arms. I'm so sick of these guys. I'm gonna quit. I swear, I'm gonna quit this time.
Yeah, we get a little bit of angry Hwang.
But like it is angry Hwang, but also it's kind of like a more human, like petulant.
Right. I mean, this is not angry Hwang out for blood. You know, the last time we saw angry Hwang out for blood, that was Iserlohn. This is more like
angry Hwang sick of his bosses hounding him for doing his job.
Yes. And he has every right to. I mean,
yes, absolutely.
Like Hwang has done everything the FBA could have possibly asked of him. Like,
indeed,
these ungrateful sons of bitches. He saved their lives. He could have done what Shun Cup told him to. He could have waited long enough for all of the government to be purged. He could have done it.
Could have done exactly what they're like accusing him of doing right now.
Yeah, like everything they're accusing Hwang of doing, things that never ever occurred to Hwang Wenli, he could have done in a heartbeat.
No, I think they occurred to him, and he deliberately chose to not do them.
Yes, sure, that is true. You're right, but it's just his anger is palpable in these scenes because it's just so frustrating.
Yeah, it is absolutely infuriating to watch these people lay into him.
But yeah, so then we roll into episode 32, which starts off with alarms at Iserlohn because
something
apparently
is warped in. What's the mass of the fleet that's warped in? 400 trillion tons.
Oh god, those are the kind of absurd numbers that I live for in my.
I do like everyone be like, "Are you serious?" Like, copy that. Is that right? The trillion? Did you say trillion? And everyone's like, "Yep, it's real bad."
Yeah, it ain't good. That's for sure.
Yeah, we just get Hwang's like war room of his squad freaking out. Shenkop and Poplin making jokes.
And Mirai's
saying, this is no time for jokes.
Yes. And I mean, it's a bad situation. It really is, but we begin to start to see the Hwang squad bereft of Hwang. Well, how they fare without him at the head. And I'd say for the most part, they carry themselves pretty well.
Yeah.
This episode. I feel like there's very much a version of this that is, oh no, Hwang's not here, we're screwed and we're all gonna die. But
on the other hand, their plan is once Hwang gets here, he'll fix everything.
True.
I don't know about his track record shows that he probably will, but also I don't think that's the best idea.
It's kind of a Hail Mary, yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, in many ways, it's not just Hwang, and theoretically, it's also reinforcements. Like ideally, right? Of course, in a perfect world, it's hold out long enough for Hwang and the FPA reinforcements back at Heinesen,
right,
to reach Iserlohn.
4 weeks or something, over
yes. There. But anyways, we returned once again to the inquiry where Hwang has truly run out of fucks to give.
There's this great wordless storytelling kind of where when he first goes in the inquiry last episode and he sits down in the freaking chair in front of the tribunal and kind of slouching, crossing his legs, and they yell at him for crossing his legs and slouching. They're like, shut up, how dare you disrespect. And as we get further along, he just goes back to cross his legs and slouching.
Yes.
He just doesn't care.
He has just truly lost the ability to care about this bullshit anymore. And yes, as you said, it's a fantastic bit of visual storytelling that just communicates everything you need to know about Hwang's state of mind about these affairs. And it's because it's because Young knows that like they hate him, but also he's absolutely vital to them.
Yep.
Like there is no version of like the actual reason Yang truly considers this an absolute waste of time is because Yang knows, and maybe even they know, or maybe they're foolish enough to think that they can actually like punish Yang in some way, but Yang knows that they can't actually do anything to him. Like they can't strip him of his rank, they can't execute him because he's done nothing wrong. Like by the letter of the law, Yang has done absolutely nothing wrong.
He's done his job to the best of his ability, and he's done a damn good job of it.
And like this is why like people hate politicians. Like just to get real here for a second, like because politicians operate entirely in rhetoric, right? Like to go back to when they're talking about needless misunderstandings, like you can't court-martial someone over a needless misunderstanding, but legally you can't court-martial somebody over a needless misunderstanding, but a politician could try and get away with it anyways. Like it's such garbage. And we have this great bit where Yang's just there kind of tapping his foot, purposely waiting for when will be the most dramatic possible time.
Whip out his letter of resignation.
Yes.
You've activated my trap card.
Oh, totally. That's totally what he's trying to wait for here.
Meanwhile, Frederica is and Bucock and Louis Mashengo.
Yeah, they meet up with
Labello.
Yeah, Labello's back.
Yeah,
and he's here to
good chair people.
Yes, and he's here to explain to us that the FPA is fucked.
Yeah, that they have covered up plenty of like exposés on their government.
Yes.
The Edwards Committee. Actually, I really like this because it shows that like Jessica Edwards' legacy lives on in some way.
Yeah. Well, it did.
Well, yes, that a group formed in her name after the coup d'état to like investigate politicians and influential folks, and found that even though many of them were drafted for the military, like only one out of 15 or something actually got sent to the front lines. They protested against this obvious injustice and were suppressed by the police. And then after they're running away from the police, they got beat up by the PKC.
Yes. And then not only that, but then the media reports with bias basically summing up only the police report instead of the actual circumstances surrounding what happened. And this is a fantastic bit of writing because, especially, again, I'm sure all of these things were still relevant back then, but this
particularly relevant now.
This story is extremely relevant in 2018 because everything about this is literally by the numbers, like almost a perfect one-for-one representation of these sorts of things that have been happening in American politics as of late,
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that the Edwards Committee was specifically formed to investigate political corruption and then protest it, and then were not only like put down by the police, but then beaten down by a far-right extremist group, which then the police go on to ignore and condone. Like these are literally 2018 headlines. Like everything that has happened in this scene has literally happened this year. It's insane. It's absurd, and it's deeply tragic.
Frederica saying, "I thought it was impossible, but I guess I was being naive."
Yeah, it is. And even the media thing, like it's just everything about it is there are so many activist movements that have happened in the past couple of years that this is a perfect parallel to. That it is absurd that something that was written 30 years ago can still be so relevant, can still get it. And in many ways, like, what does that say about us? Like, what does it say about...
It's not a great look for humanity.
Yeah, like, what does it say about our society that the kinds of things that Legend of the Galactic Heroes talks about in 1988 or 1990, whatever, when Season 2 airs, have such strong parallels in modern day.
Yeah. Yeah. As they say at the start of every episode, in every time, in every age, the deeds of men do not change.
Yep, that's that bit of German at the OP is starting to feel real real prescient. But
like I genuinely, after watching these episodes, kind of laid awake, staring at the ceiling for a while.
Yeah. Anyways,
we'll skip a bit of Mashengo looking at the tabloids, the newspapers talking about naughty affairs between Hwang Louis and Trader Greenhill's daughter.
Yes. Yeah, speaking of the media being corrupt and reporting bullshits, yes, we get some of that. But and anyways, we return to the inquiry where
politicians war is good, actually.
Right, like this, we have these politicians acting like they know fucking jack shit about history. Like, it's the most patronizing thing. Like, again, I don't want us to sound like we're like some fucking far left whatever, like super whatevers, but like it seems like this that like truly get to the core of like why I think so many millennials like have truly run out of fucks to give about the baby boomer generation.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think this little bit here is a perfect encapsulation of that, where that politician with the very long name,
yes,
like the absurdly long name.
I should look that. I should check that.
Like
quick.
he basically he tries to fuck he because he's an old man and Yang's a young man. He tries to pull this fucking like, well, listen here, Sonny, you're young but you're smart, but you're young and you don't have experience. Like, let me tell you about war. Let me tell you what war is really all about. Like, war is this glorious thing that we must all sacrifice for in the name of protecting the nation.
It makes us, it advances us as a people.
And it's
peace
just
and
like
freedom just increase our decadence and lower our vitality.
Right. There is literally some like literal baby boomer byline bullshit here. Like, oh, you're the younger generation's just getting soft and weak because they haven't had a good war to toughen them up.
Special snowflakes.
It's just fucking yes. Special snowflake, radical vegan or anarchist Hwang Louis. Fucking God, just what a fucking pile of garbage.
Prove that war causes nations to rise.
And fucking Hwang Louis lays down
spits some hot fire.
He spits the hottest fire. He lays down the speech to end all speeches. This might actually be Yang's final smash in Smash Bros. Is this speech?
He gives a speech about how war is bad.
Yeah, about like basically the long and short of it is that he basically says that like, you know, the worst thing, the absolute worst possible kind of person is the person who takes advantage of war to their own profit. And not only does that, but shows false patriotism to deceive others, usually the lower classes, to carry out their own selfish goals.
Yeah. To gain power, send other people to die, hide, safely while other people do their dirty work for them.
Exactly. And that like there is just nothing worse than
cowardly.
Yeah, and that these people who they hide in safe places and extol and praise war, while forcing patriotism as a burden onto others. Like, you think about all this fucking talk these inquiry like jackasses have been saying this entire like episode, right? All about nation and duty and sacrifice, and it's like,
once again, believe that shit. You're not the ones doing it.
Exactly. Like it's a. I will say that, while I do want to say that, okay, fantastic parallel to modern day, I feel like this was probably written more as like a reaction to Vietnam, where we kind of saw a very similar thing. I mean, y'all can listen to the song "Fortunate Son" that basically gets to the core of this. That like, It's very easy for Mr. Senator to talk about sacrifice and patriotism, about asking his constituents, his voters, that, oh, you got to be patriots, you got to fight the war because you need to defend America. That's all very, like...
But I'll sit here and get my senator's salary and...
Yes. But not only that, but it's more that I think the thing that really disgusts me about it is, like, now, say what you will about patriotism versus nationalism, and I will contend that there is definitely a meaningful difference between the two, and
Sure.
that patriotism is not, like many concepts, patriotism is not an inherently negative concept. In fact, sometimes it can be good to take pride in your nation's accomplishments. But what really disgusts me about this conversation, about everything about the scene, is this idea that patriotism is a burden for the poor. It is a burden for the common man. It is the common man's job to be the patriot. The rich don't have to be patriots. The powerful don't have to be patriots. Of course, they'll insist they're patriots. Of course, they'll say, "Oh, but I pay. I stand up for the national anthem. Doesn't that make me a patriot?" It's like it's.
I also vote for tax cuts that mean I don't have to pay my country.
Right.
But the poor people can cover that. Oh, yeah, why should I have to pay money?
God, just
cover the rest of the nation.
Just it's just this, again, it gets to the core of, like, you guys have to be patriots. You guys have to sacrifice your lives on the front lines to save this nation. And of course, Young so rightfully says, if the defense of our homeland, or not only are you parasites, or not only are those people parasites, because I won't say you fucking jackass motherfuckers are parasites, but he has that line that if the defense of our homeland is so necessary, then why not start with the people spewing that rhetoric in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
And of course Negroponty just starts yelling at Yang, being like, how dare you call us parasites? You're in contempt of court.
This extra legal court.
Right, yes, where I was like, on what fucking grounds?
I don't have to tell you grounds.
And then Negroponty, it's so fucking good. It's just how petulant and shitty these people are. Like, Negroponty's throwing this tantrum. He's like, "Shut up, you're not allowed to say another word." And
of course, in the middle of this ridiculous tantrum, phone call. By the way, Iserlohn's under attack.
Yes.
At Geiersburg Fortress.
Yes, and Negroponty and other politicians meet, and surprise, surprise, the egg's on their face, because they have spent the last week, or however long it's been, insulting their best admiral to his face, and they fucking slink back out, and
order you to go.
That's, as it couldn't get any worse. These guys don't even have the fucking... They don't even have the decency to beg him. Fucking Negroponty's just like, "I order you to go save Iserlohn." And
I would have, but you brought me here.
Yeah, it's yeah. And then
Yang, ever principled Yang, this would actually be the most dramatic moment for him to pull out that letter of resignation.
Yes,
but his friends are there,
right?
And it's more important to him.
Yeah, I mean, as always, like, Yang is a man. Is a man burdened by his ideals. He is, like.
Bless that man.
Yes, bless that man. Because here's the thing: I thought about the scene, and if it were Reinhard in Yang's position, like if Reinhard were the one sitting here in this inquiry, that Reinhard would, like, resign, or not resign. He wouldn't mean it, but he would resign.
And he would make them beg.
He would make them beg, and not only would he make them beg, he would make them guarantee concessions. He would make them concede power. He would make them guarantee his position. He would play the game. He would negotiate.
Yeah.
He would go through with the theatrics. But Yang's not that kind of guy. He doesn't have time for that kind of bullshit, because he's just too honest for his own good in some ways.
He
So,
does kind of stick it to them a little, just a
of
little.
course he does. Of course he does. He,
No one couldn't at that point.
Of course, no. In many ways, as frustrating as this entire affair has been, I will say that the conclusion of it is, in many ways, extremely satisfying.
Yeah.
Like, I am definitely afraid for the people on Iserlohn, but at the same time, I think that...
Yeah, there's this weird, like, dissonance where we're terrified that Iserlohn's under attack and they might die, but also, like, yeah, we sure stuck it to that one dude.
Yeah,
hooray, well, it's free! Oh no, everyone's in danger, but hooray, we screwed Negroponty.
I mean, in many ways, kind of like the current political landscape we exist in.
We take our kicks where we can get them.
Yeah, you take the little victories where you can. But then we got a fantastic... We haven't really said much about him because he hasn't said much.
Hwang
but
Louis
during this entire inquiry...
was on this committee.
Yes,
the other good chairman.
Yes, LaBello's friend Hwang Louis has been sitting in on this inquiry, kind of just smugly,
winking at Yang now and then.
Yang this whole time. But then we get this fantastic line where he says that, we're politicians. We don't contribute anything whatsoever to society's productiveness.
We're elected to make sure the government keeps running, and we get paid for that.
Yes.
So we actually don't do shit.
Yes, but at least we get a little bit here where Hwang Louis at least proves that a politician can sometimes do something when the chips are down. Where he basically not so subtly suggests that somebody has to take the fall for this
for dragging Yang away from the front lines.
Where Hwang Louis is literally like the FEA, for all we know, we might be dead tomorrow. Like,
if it wasn't for him, we'd already be dead.
Exactly, and I think somebody needs to take responsibility for this grave mistake.
But not Yang.
But not Yang. So yes, Negroponty basically gets sacked. We return, we might as well switch these two around chronologically just because I feel like what we're going to talk about...
takes Yang out to dinner because
it's
a 4-week trip anyway.
Yeah.
Might as well get a meal in, yeah.
Yeah. And he says that, okay, we're going to give you the first fleet, it's not much, but that's all Heinesen really has, ready to go at a moment's notice, so...
Yeah, and Joan Labello does kind of lay it out that, like, if Yang really wanted, he could just take control, just like Goldenbaum did. And, even if you don't see yourself possibly doing that, like, Rudolph didn't either.
Yeah.
Once he had all that power, power corrupts.
Right. And it's again, it's a tough thing because of course, the Yang we know, we're like, what? No, Yang could never do that. Like Yang would be like the best president ever. But then, with added responsibility and with added almost unchecked power, that can do a lot of things to a person.
Yeah. I do like how they ask, like, do you think that would actually happen with Yang? And he says, I don't know. Like,
yeah,
it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, because I think that's the thing. Every rational person, I'm sure if you ask to like almost any person on the street, hey, if you suddenly had like a ton of money and unlimited power, like you wouldn't abuse it, right? And I think most reasonable people would say, no, of course not. Like I just want enough money and power to take care of myself and those I care for. But, it's always hard to say, once it actually happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyways, we finally... I want to switch these around just because I want to save all the Iserlohn stuff for our final discussion here.
Right.
But we finally get a little bit with Negroponty and Truniht, where Job Truniht is just sitting in his office caressing this vase.
Yeah, just polishing a vase or something.
While, like, listening to Negroponty, like, fucking,
office.
Yeah, well, Negroponty's like, fucking bowing and scraping.
Even if you resign, I have other jobs for you.
Right.
As long as you don't let the inquiry become public.
Yeah.
Later, I don't actually care about you.
Yes.
Because he's talking with a Mr. Island, whoever that is.
Yeah. We will see where that goes. More plot threads are formed. with every episode. But
yeah,
finally, we return to Iserlohn, where Kazalnu kind of lays out the basic plan. Like,
hold out until Young gets here.
I mean, it is hold up till Young gets here, which I agree is not maybe the most solid plan, but in many ways, like, I mean, of course you could say, oh well, that just shows like how weak Young's bench is, that they're so like,
yeah.
They're so weak and incompetent that they can't even take care of this situation on their own. But I think actually this speaks to actually how aware they are. Like, it takes a lot of pride, or not pride, but it takes a lot of like self-awareness to know that, hey, we cannot win this fight on our own. Like, there are probably good commanders at Iserlohn. I think, you had Edwin Fisher there. You got like Shenkop. Kazalnu seems like Dusty seems like a, he doesn't seem like a, genius tier admiral, but he seems competent. At least he's not, actively bad at his job. You have guys like Shenkop. Like, everybody in Young's bench is good at their jobs, but it's, they're not necessarily, the...
You know what it is? I think they're all way more specialized than Reinhardt's team of brilliant people who are good at everything.
Yes, I think that's kind of a good way of putting it, right? Like, whereas like Reinhardt's admirals are, these kind of like multidisciplinary, masters and commanders of their, of warfare. Young has surrounded himself with, specialists, right? Logistics specialists, combat specialists, dog fighting, aces and such,
Yeah.
Like, these are people who are undeniably good at their jobs, but those jobs are not winning wars, not winning battles. That's Young's job. Yeah. And so, in a ways, I think
it does bear saying it's not just hold out till Young gets here. It's also make sure the Empire doesn't figure out that Young's not here.
Yeah, so that's the part I want to get to, is we get this fantastic conversation where Kazalnu basically lays it out, like, okay, we have to hold out for 4 weeks. We have to fight as defensively as possible.
At least 4 weeks.
Like, we have to bleed them out while preserving our own forces for as long as possible, because it's not just a case of we need to hold out till Young gets here. We need to hold out and then give Young something to work with. If Young gets here and Iserlohn's already falling apart, but there's not much for him to save then, Yeah. And most importantly, yes, Kempf and Geiersburg do not know that Young is away. Yeah. Like, the moment they know Young is not here, they will go on a full offensive and they will win. They outgun us, they outman us. Like, there is no way we can survive a full assault. So we need to keep them cautious. We need to keep them convinced that they are not in control. And this already gets put to the test. Yeah, and now in retrospect, oh shit, Young's flagship is there. Holy shit. Like, they got it. They're totally going to use that in some way, right?
They absolutely will.
Oh man, like,
I forgot about that until we mentioned it.
Like I'm already thinking to myself, like, oh, what do they try to do a thing of, like, when Young almost gets there, like, they like do like something where they sacrifice Young's flagship, and so Kempf is like, I've defeated Yang Wen-li, and then fucking Yang Wen-li shows up on the fucking, shows up the monitor, is like, ha, you thought you got me. But
you probably say like, I really like that ship, or something.
Yeah, but
and then everyone freaks out.
Right. But yeah, so then this already gets put to the test when they get contacted immediately by the Empire forces, where Kempf, they say, well, put him on speaker. Do not turn on the monitor. Do not turn on the webcam. And Kempf is basically just like, I look forward to meeting you on the field of battle because I am a straightforward soldiery type dude.
Yeah, there's actually a good bit here where he first calls them the rebel forces, as all of the Empire has done the entire time.
Yes.
But then he's like, no, the Free Planet Alliance.
Yeah.
Like, which I took it as like them trying to show Kempf as a like respectable fellow.
I think Kempf is respectable. I initially thought it was
the intent of that comment.
Yes. I initially thought it was maybe more of a snide, like, attention rebels, oh, excuse me, I meant FPA, but that doesn't seem in Kempf's character. Kempf seems like maybe a little simple, but overall, like, a pretty decent person.
Yeah.
So, You know, we kind of had that good moment where Kemp's like, "Oh man, I thought I was hoping."
To talk to Yang Wen Li.
Yeah, I want to talk to Yang Wen Li. Oh well, he'll speak to me on the battlefield.
Yes, I will hear the loud roar of your fists.
Yes, and so with both Geiersburg and Iserlohn charging up their cannons and their fleets approaching into firing distance, we kind of end on hell of a cliffhanger.
Yeah, Geiersburg fires its laser as the narrator, gives us a rundown of Iserlohn's defenses. It says its defenses are perfect and it has never been harmed. But now that time has passed.
It's a very good. Oh my god, that narration at the end of that episode is some top-notch shit. But yes, so as I was telling Iro the other day after we finished this, I feel like I feel how when we were watching the Battle of Armlitzer, we knew it was going to go bad because they foreshadowed it. They projected. They showed us repeatedly.
Several episodes up until the Battle of Armlitzer was just the FPA falling apart.
Yes,
their entire battle plan coming apart the seams.
So when the battle actually happened, it came to no surprise that things went as bad as they did. Yeah. However, for this battle, I'm not going to say, oh, like the guys at Iserlohn are going to be fine. I'm going to bet some people die. I don't know who, but I bet some lives are going to be lost in this battle. But I don't feel as bad about this as I did about Armlitzer. And I think at least the way they're portraying this battle, at least the way they're framing it, is like, yes, the FPA is in a bad spot. Yang is not there. They've been surprise attacked by a plan that should have never worked. And things are looking bad. But also, they're prepared. They had time to get ready as best they could. Yeah. And it is Yang's entire team there. Yang's entire staff is there. The best men and women that he has to his disposal, Yeah.
I think in an ideal world, the way I kind of want this to go is that they all get to show off and resolve the issue without Yang Wen Li.
Yes,
that
was kind of my hope.
I don't think that will necessarily happen, but
no, but
it's what I would like to happen.
Yeah, I would definitely like that because I feel like the Empire gets to show off a little bit too often. Like everybody in the Empire gets to show off how good they are at their jobs, whereas in the FPA, it's really only ever Yang Wen Li we see doing a good job.
Yeah.
But I would definitely love if this were like the Dad's Not Home arc of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, where it's the rest of Yang's team being like, okay, Yang's not here, but we can still do it. So
and they do it. I want to see them do it.
Yeah, totally. I want to see them. I want to see what they can do because again, these are not incompetent people. Kazalnu is a fantastic staff officer. You got Shenkop there in the Rosenritter. Tell me the fuck.
What I think might actually happen is that Merkatz becomes MVP for this battle.
Yeah, I kind of hope so. We get a little bit of that when Kazalnu's like, Merkatz, tell us about all of Geiersburg's,
It's just like, hey, Schneider, tell them all about Geiersburg.
Yeah, tell us about Geiersburg.
Rattles it all off the top of his head.
And I was literally half expecting Schneider to say, and by the way, Geiersburg has a tiny exhaust vent.
There's a 2-meter exhaust port.
Yes.
All right, Julian, time to get out there.
It would just make the Julian is Luke Skywalker parallels all the stronger.
Oh, but it would
if
be
that
so
actually
good.
happened. Oh my god, it would be so good. Oh my god, what if they actually did? What happens if fucking Oliver Poplin, Julian, and Konev all just fucking did the trench run, but in Legend of the Galactic Heroes?
I'd actually be really into that.
Oh, that would be so good.
I don't know if that'll happen.
No,
but
I don't think this show's gonna be that optimistic, but
it'd be great.
Yes, but I guess the way I'll put it is, I am super interested in how this battle's gonna go. With Armlitzer, you knew that was gonna end horribly for the FPA. For the first taking of Iserlohn, you kind of knew Yang was gonna take it. You didn't know how he was gonna do it, but the way it was narratively framed, you kind of knew that Yang was gonna be able to pull it off.
Yeah.
But this is a fight where I'm not sure how it's going to go. I don't think it's going to be a complete slaughter, but I don't think
they're actually pretty evenly matched. Like,
yeah. Like again, and that's the other thing, right?
As you like said after we watched, like Reinhard isn't there. It's Kempf leading the fleet.
It's Kempf. Yes, like as I joked the other day, like Reinhard has like his bubble of competency that extends to everybody else in his vicinity, but like he's not here. Like it's only Kempf, and we haven't really seen Kempf fight much. Like I think Kempf was the one fighting with Yang and Armlitzer.
Armlitzer, yeah.
Yeah, like they were the ones that were initially battling before before Yang pulled off his retreat.
Armlitzer was a big. There was a lot going on.
Right. Well, but what I mean is that is kind of the only place we've seen Kempf so far.
Yeah.
Like we don't really have a good handle on his tactical acumen yet. You know, we don't know. Like, is this guy gonna be like a Mittermeier or a Royenthal, or is he gonna be more of a Bittenfield? You know, we just don't know yet, and I guess that's kind of the thing, right? In a sense, both parties in this battle are unproven. Like we haven't really seen much of Kempf yet, and we also haven't really ever seen Yang's staff, you know, without Yang to lead them. So, man, this show is just so good. God damn it! Just every fucking week they manage to just come up with new, interesting like dynamics to interest and entertain us.
Indeed, and depress us.
And depress us, yes. I don't know if I can handle another fucking 50 episodes of watching the FPA fuck itself to death. Like
We've already get to watch the United States of America fuck itself to death. So
it's not even just that, man. It's like we're only 32 episodes in, and I'm already so exhausted with the FPA.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
I just cannot deal with them anymore. Like if the reason why Legend of the Galactic Heroes like attracts like a weird, shitty monarchist fan base is because after 100 episodes of watching the FPA screw itself over, then I could see why you might eventually turn around on democracy by the end. But I just don't know, man.
I don't either.
Yeah. Well, anyways, on that unpleasant note, I think we're going to call this a podcast.
Hooray.
So just do some, basic housekeeping. As always, you can read all of our content and listen to all of our podcasts at theglorioblog.com. You can also listen to the podcasts on Podbean and iTunes and wherever else podcasts are bought and sold. And
those.
Yes. You can follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog.com. You can also watch the podcasts on YouTube if you Google YouTube and then Legend of the GLORIO Heroes, because I can't give you a YouTube URL. We don't have one yet. Maybe if y'all pound that subscribe button, we might one day. But until then, who can say? But
listen to our other podcast, the GLORIO Chat.
Yes, in the same feed.
Yeah. And our year-end stuff is coming up.
Yeah, we might as well talk about that a little bit.
As it's recording.
Yeah, yes. For those of you who are only listening for the Legend of the Galactic Heroes stuff, at the GLORIO blog, we always kind of do a lot of end-of-year blog posts, and now this year a podcast, where basically all the individual members of the blog kind of create their own article. They range everything from, your top 10 list to just your favorite moments of the year, or even your favorite albums that came out, or whatever. It's just kind of a general time of the year where, because we're all very busy people, we don't always have time to write down everything we want to about the anime that aired in a year. We kind of use these blog posts, and hopefully this podcast is kind of a final place to kind of just give a good summary of all of our thoughts for the year in anime. So if that sounds interesting to you, then keep a lookout for it. I have a feeling that Iro and I, mine and Iro's posts this year might involve a lot of Legend of the Galactic Heroes talks.
Yes, well.
So, if you only care about Legend of the Galactic Heroes stuff, then at least pay attention to our posts. So.
I can only say so much. It's not a show from this year.
Come on. If we're doing it, dude, if you're doing a 2018 in review like post,
yes.
Look,
it will be mentioned at least once.
I feel like Legend of the Galactic Heroes is. Here's the thing. I'm going to bring it up in our other podcast because I feel like it is important that we at least mention that it is no understatement to say that Legend of the Galactic Heroes is either literally actually the best anime we watched in 2018, or at least a contender, because
absolutely.
Look, 2018 has been a really strong year for anime, but
it's true.
Fucking Legend of the Galactic Heroes is operating on levels, levels we have never seen before. But with all that said, thank you all for listening. Iro, thank you for, as always, being here with me on the podcast.
Thank you.
And with all that said, we will see you all next time amongst the Sea of Stars.